Oh, awesome. We got some peeps joining on. Welcome, everyone. So, we got some early starters. That's really cool. So, welcome, everyone. Welcome, Anisha, Holly. Hello, Holly. Hello, Cot. Hello, Mel. Hi, Melina. Michelle, welcome. Philip. Oh, Tamara. Sophia. Tara, welcome. Lots of people popping on. Charlie. So Chloe. Oh, Dean. Oh, hello. So yeah, lots of cool peeps coming on. So welcome to tonight's talk. We're just going to give a minute for everyone to slowly log in because yeah, it might take a minute or two. But yeah, if everyone say, well, I'll just say hi in the chat as well. But yeah, if everyone could maybe like say something on the chat, just to say hi. I'll say hi to hello. One thing I'll be telling everyone later on anyway is to maybe switch your chat mode. You'll see that by default I think it's talking to panelists, but yeah, let's switch it to panelists and attendees, and everyone will be able to see everyone. So give it a try. Right? Just have a look at your chat option, and then just quickly making sure that it's switched to panelists and attendees so that we can all see everyone chatting with everyone. And that would be awesome. But otherwise, yeah, we're 2 minutes in. Hopefully everyone's sort of popping in. So we've got a few new people like Eden and then Melina. And so Aiden, all welcome. So anyways, thanks for tuning in to tonight's interesting topic, one of our master talks from AIT. So I just want to quickly introduce myself. My name is Carlton, and maybe you see in the chat. Yeah, Carlton. So just want to give you a big welcome to, a nice Wednesday evening where I know I'm from Sydney, and so the rain has finally subsided, but it was like raining in the morning. Is everyone from Sydney? Or what about Melbourne? Is everyone from Melbourne? And how's the weather today in Melbourne? Hope things are like sort of like drying back up a bit because yeah, we've had plenty of rain throughout the week. So I'm Carlton. I'm one of the programming teachers of AIT. I do mostly games programming and apps programming, right? So chances are you are here today in tonight's talk if maybe you're interested in something techie, because clearly we have a very techie talk today, right? And so our topic today is the world of live and digital experiences. Wow, such a big word, right? And so now I don't know about you, but we're living in an age of tech. Yeah. And so, I come from gaming. Some of you might be gamers, maybe, right? So have like a very strong upbringing of games. And then chances are you've been surfing a lot of mobile apps, and then you've been surfing a lot of websites as well. So most of us are maybe quite tech savvy, but those are like now the norm, right? And what we've entered into is a new realm of tech called the world of live and digital experience, something that's very cutting edge these days, and that's happening all around us. So it's kind of good to sort of see what that's all about, right? And sort of get exposure to what's the latest and coolest things that's happening in the tech industry right now. And through that, we've got a very, very special guest speaker today. His name is Michael Dries, right? And so I'll introduce you to Michael, and he'll come on screen in a second. But yeah, Michael is a CEO and co-founder of two very cool companies. Hi, Michael. Michael's on screen now. Hey. And then, Michael is a co-founder and CEO of apps and web company and applications. And he's also today doing a very cool talk on his new company, Spaces Interactive, which focuses on live and digital experiences. So that's going to be really cool to, see Michael's chat in a sec. Just a quick overview of the night. It's a very cool little short session tonight where Michael's going to do a 30-minute talk, and then he's going to show you what Spaces is all about and give you some tips and advice on what's happening in the tech industry currently, right? And then that's going to go for 30 minutes. But after that, after Michael's talk, we're also going to have a course overview as well. So if you're interested in studying a bit of IT and tech and programming, we'll also give you an overview of our course in Bachelor of Interactive Media as well. So it would be awesome to have a very highly engaging session with everyone. Our aim today is to have the talk from Michael, but also hear from you as well. What are you interested in and what you'd like to learn more about in the tech industry? So in the chat, I strongly recommend everyone to leave stuff in the chat, because we have our course advisors here. And so we got Charlotte and then we got Donna. They're going to be logging the chat and trying to collate all the questions. And we're going to make sure all questions get answered, right? And so, yeah, definitely encourage everyone to throw questions, throw tons of them in the chat. We're not going to answer it throughout the presentation, but we'll answer everything at the end where there'll be a Q&A session, right? So make sure you leave your questions there, and we'll try to answer everyone's questions as much as possible. So everything that you've ever wanted to learn about IT, ask it today, right? But without further ado, I'm just going to introduce you to Michael to come on and show his screen and introduce you to Michael. So how are you doing, Michael?
Great. Thanks, Carlton. And thanks to AIT for asking me to talk tonight. We've had a great relationship with AIT now for several years, and a number of our staff actually have come to us from AIT via the internship program and as graduates. So thanks again. I might just kick off by sharing screen. So hopefully everyone's seeing the title page. So Spaces Interactive, I'm one of the co-founders, and it was born very much out of, just by way of quick history, very much out of COVID initially. So I have a company called Merck, which is a purely tech-based company specializing in emerging technology, which has been running about 10 years. And we formed a joint venture, what started as a joint venture with an events company right at the very start of COVID. We already had worked on a number of projects with that company, and that joint venture got so much traction that we very, very quickly formed a company called Spaces Interactive. So we're a team of about 30 people, mix of developers, animators, designers, project managers, based primarily in Sydney, and also we have some people in Melbourne as well, so very much the eastern seaboard of Australia. Thought the topic for tonight would be a good one to focus on the world of live and digital experiences, and a way, I guess, of examining how digital has been called on, partly as a result of COVID, but partly, for us, it was very much COVID really just advanced what we saw happening anyway. So there aren't too many videos to play, but here's a 60-second one on Spaces. Yeah, that's just a small taste of some of the projects we've done. So I just want to run through, I guess, what's at the core of our business, and then go a little bit deeper into some of those case studies, or some of those projects as case studies that were featured in the video. So this is a graphic that we use really is to ground us through all of our projects. So it's very much technology is a key part, but it's only part of the matrix of things that we apply. So it all starts really with audience insights. So when we're developing a product, an activation, we start in the heart. So what does the audience care about? What does the audience want? Inevitably, we roll out with data, creativity, and technology. It's very much about messaging. So feelings, emotions, and all the senses. So whether it's a physical activation, a hybrid, or a digital, we're really trying to encourage and incite a reaction, emotions. Technology we use very much as an enabler, and ultimately, because we're operating in a commercial environment, it's all about performance. So what do we need to achieve for the project to be a success? Is it about sales? Is it about other outcomes? What are the metrics? What are the return on investment that a brand is looking for? Often it's sales, often it's something much less tangible than that. So what that means for us as a company is it's all about shaping connected experiences that powerfully bring brands to life, storytelling, curiosity, and wonder. And obviously for us, technology is a key part of executing on that brief. Because we have such a wide offering, we work with a really wide array of brands. So there's just a few, we call that our bragging wall. We've delivered projects for over 70 brand partners and have created over 400 experiences. This is, I guess, a summary of the key areas that we tend to operate in. So it's very wide. It's everything from exhibits, events, retail activations, mobile programs, immersive spaces, digital development, so app development, custom software platforms, and we love emerging tech platforms. So augmented reality, virtual reality, and training and education platforms. So just having a look at a bit of a deeper dive into some of our work. We've broken them up, I guess, just into hybrid experiences. So we classify hybrid experiences as something that has both a digital and a physical presence. So first thing we'll look at is a project called Telstra Nuts Year Awards. So Telstra came to us at the very start of COVID. The Nuts Year Awards typically or traditionally are held every year in the Northern Territory Art Gallery, and they're Australia's biggest Indigenous art awards. So when the COVID pandemic first hit, that was about 2 months out of when the awards were due. What an award or what an exhibition pre-COVID looked like was there was an awards night. The exhibition was on for a number of weeks. People would travel from all around the country, but also they'd have international guests and attendees would fly into Darwin, have a big awards night, and then the exhibition would go on for a number of weeks. That was entirely impossible because of travel restrictions. So they came to us with a very tight timeline. And what we delivered was a virtual gallery that worked very well to the extent that they actually had us do that for a second year. So here's an example, well, the actual site. So this is a 3D navigable space.
Visit natsia.com.au now
You're
to
viewing
discover
the
stories
desktop version. It's a good example of the types of things we've been called on to do and the types of projects that are very popular. This is a stylized reproduction of the Northern Territory Gallery. So, and these are all the artworks in the current exhibit. So you can walk around the gallery. As I say, this is the desktop version. There's also a virtual reality version so that you can put on the VR headset and walk around the space. And we've also integrated augmented reality elements. So something you can't do in a physical gallery is actually bring the artworks to life, which if anybody's watching the presentation with a smartphone handy, which I think is probably most people, if you'd like to actually bring it out and activate the QR code, you'll be able to see, I'll just give everyone a minute to do that. You can see that you can actually bring that 3D artwork to life. So I won't dwell too long on this, but if anybody's doing that, I'll just give them a minute. So the QR code will take you to a site. It will launch a 3D version of the piece, if anyone can see that. But the real magic happens if you press the white cube in the bottom right-hand corner, where it will ask you to scan your space, and you can actually place the object in augmented reality within your environment. You can manipulate it, you can zoom in, zoom out, reposition it. So hopefully that's worked for people. If anybody's looking for any of these links, just post in the chat and we'll organize links to all these sites. I'll go back to the presentation. So that's proved to be very successful, and we selected this one because it's a good example of, I guess, how people were forced to rethink what was purely a physical activation, in this case, the award ceremony and the number of weeks of the exhibition, to the point where in year 2, where the physical activation was still possible, the organisers still went ahead with a virtual one to supplement or to complement the two, because what they found was having the virtual space just opened it up to so many more attendees than were previously able to attend. So if you look at some of the numbers there, 13-minute average session time is pretty amazing in terms of engagement. 25,000 unique visitors, which is certainly a lot more than people who physically attended previously. So this is a project we did for Mitsubishi Heavy Industries. Again, a hybrid project. So Mitsubishi came to us to get us to develop for them a showroom which spanned both their commercial and domestic offerings, which was used as a sales tool, but also a training tool. So people would go to that space, which was in Melbourne, go to that space and learn all about the product, and then go back to their respective area and be able to be informed and sell the product and recommend the right product for their clients' needs. The showroom was finished, and the timing could not have been worse for them, because that was when the very start of the pandemic. So they asked us to also do a virtual version of the showroom. This is the example of the virtual version. So that choice between a commercial client or also a select commercial client, there's just a bit of an introductory navigation, which I'll skip because I'm very familiar with it, obviously. But it's a space that you can walk around. There's animations there. You can learn all about the products. It's fully multimedia. So again, it can be viewed on desktop, which is what we're doing here, obviously. There's augmented reality elements. If people want to experience in virtual reality headset, then that's available as well. There's interactive elements. So there's, I won't say the G word because that will actually trigger the activation, but people can experiment in that space with the home device and how it controls the AC unit as well. And again, client was very, very happy with that. So on the back of some of their internal testing, they're actually pointing to an 82% increase in training outcomes compared with people that were attending the site physically. And I think that's indicative of just the variety of information and interactions that you can give in those 3D spaces. I'll just move to, so we'll just touch on some live experiences. And this is for a client that we picked up about a bit over 6 months ago. So Polestar is an electric vehicle company that have launched in Australia using us, and they're owned by Volvo, anyone who might be familiar with them. So they have a product that is very much tech, as I guess most e-vehicles are targeted toward people who are interested in tech. It's a great product, and it's one that more than most traditional, the traditional sales cycle of cars, it's more about using the web and other digital tools to actually get people committed to finding out more and making a purchasing decision, which they can through the website, or they can book a test drive. So we've actually been, through that digital offering, we've been coordinating national test drive locations. So in Sydney Moore Park, number of shopping centre activations where people can actually go and, once they've registered for a test drive the vehicles. So yeah, again, delivered over 3,000 test drives, and sales have been beyond expectations. So just looking at a couple of digital experiences. So University of Tasmania Virtual Open Day, again, came to us because they were unable to do what they typically do because of the pandemic. What we did for them was build a virtual open day environment. So they're well known for a number of faculties and teaching areas, but have always struggled because they haven't really been able to attract mainland students. So they went to 100% virtual open day, which we've now done again for 2 years. And I'll just play this video.
At Spaces Interactive, we strive to reinvent how organisations connect with their audience. The University of Tasmania needed a way to create an open day that delivered their unique learning experience to prospective students, regardless of their location. Our integrated team created an immersive digital touchpoint that places the user within a 3D environment that lets them discover what UTAS has to offer. The virtual experience lets people learn more about the sights of Tasmania, chat to faculty leaders, explore course options, tour the campus, and much more. Reimagining the University Open Day. Welcome to Spaces Interactive.
So yeah, they're another example of a client who came to us purely out of the pandemic, but then for their second year, as things were starting to open up and they were able to reinstate a physical presence, still maintained the virtual one. And I think that's something we've been seeing pretty much across the board, is the pandemic has made brands by default initially, or not default, but out of necessity, initially look to digital offerings to see what they can do instead of what they typically did. But once they've done that, they have realized that there is definitely a space for, even if they go back to a physical offering, for both physical and digital. So looking at some of the stats for UTAS, they had over 70% of their attendees were actually from the mainland. So yeah, they're we're certainly very pleased with that. They're a great organisation, but I'd say not as good as AIT for anyone who's thinking.
At Spaces Interactive,
the Opo Reef Restoration Project is one that we did for Opo. They partnered up with the Barrier Reef, and I'll just play the video because it explains it quite well.
For those who can't get enough of the Great Barrier Reef, you can now access the natural wonder from your fingertips. Smartphone company Oppo has partnered with the Reef Restoration Foundation to launch Recolour the Reef, an augmented reality app which allows users to view a 3D render of the reef's coral networks.
They've produced an app that raises awareness about the Great Barrier Reef, the stresses that the Great Barrier Reef is prone to, and what people can do to help restoration efforts.
$1 from each download of the app will be channelled into restoration works on our reef.
They've also made a donation to us as a show of good faith, and that money will be used in the most effective way that we can for the Great Barrier Reef.
The app is available now on the Apple and Google Play app stores.
Enjoyed this?
So yeah, we put that one in because I think it's a good example of how a digital offering can grow to have an effect that's beyond even the initial brief. So that was something that, as I said, we did for Oppo, the phone company. But because the Barrier Reef has such a high profile and even an international profile, and there's so much interest in it, we actually found that 30% of people who downloaded the app and were using it were international people. So by virtue of that, Oppo obviously got more exposure there, and quite a few schools were downloading it and actually using it as an educational tool as well.
For those who can't get enough of the Great Barrier Reef, you can now access.
So this is another digital example. So the Walter and Eliza Hall is a charitable organisation abbreviated to WeHi, and WeHi in the past have quite a novel, unique offering in that they display artworks from scientists and doctors working in the field of medical research. So again, they came to us saying they couldn't have their normal exhibition and events around it. So we developed for them a platform that enables their artworks to be shown, and ended up being very successful in that it was able to be offered to a much wider group of people than would have been able to attend if it was just purely a physical offering. And they were able to collaborate and get a number of partners involved as well. So you'll hear shortly classical piece that was recorded and contributed by Melbourne Symphony Orchestra. And if you look at the artworks, so they're really quite interesting. They're typically whatever the research scientists were working on, and they're actual images from mainly from microscopes. And the ability to, in a digital sense, show animated ones, tell the story of what researchers are working on, which, you know, we thought was such an important thing to do, because these people often work for, you know, very little recognition, not a lot of money. Obviously, in research is always quite difficult. And it was fully interactive, so attendees could vote. So this is the one that ultimately received seats first there, ultimately received the most votes. It went very well. Just go back to... Okay, so that's essentially the end of the, I guess, the formal presentation. So just open it up to any questions. And Carlton.
Oh, thanks so much for that, Michael. That was really awesome, right? And I hope everyone sort of yeah, gained some good insights as well into the land of, what's it like to work in the tech space, right? With Michael showing off this, literally new cutting edge stuff, right? Virtual spaces, something that is becoming, slowly becoming a big hit right now from, augmented reality. You might have heard some of these buzzwords like augmented reality, virtual reality, and what are they good to use? Some of you probably play games with it, but Michael uses that in like a real world scenario, working with clients and creating these experiences that a lot of people can enjoy beyond games, which is awesome. So hopefully everyone, probably give a 1 in the chat if you sort of found that sort of insightful. Maybe just sort of get some peeps, put a 1 in the chat. That would be awesome. But we're now into the Q&A session. And so if you have any questions that you would like to ask Michael, please leave it in the chat. I'm going to throw my questions first to start off. But whilst I'm asking questions, if you have any questions for Michael, throw it in the chat as well. We're going to collate all that and we're going to answer them in the end. So think of a question that you want to ask so that we can, answer your desires. But so hope you don't mind some questions, Michael. But I just want to ask, the first question is, how did you get into the tech industry? Like, let's say when you were young, after you finished your studies and you want to enter tech, like what about like your first jobs in the tech industry? How did it all start and how did you transition to where you are today?
Yeah, thanks, Colin. So I came to it by way of, I guess, a marketing advertising agency. So my brother and I, who's also my partner in Spaces, and our purely tech company, had a marketing agency for a number of years, and we're just finding, particularly in the areas of emerging tech, our interest was there, and thought we could serve our clients better by doing something more than just the traditional offering of TV commercials and the TV schedule and press ads and the like. Obviously, there's still a space for that, but yeah, we just, I guess, we're driven really by our own personal interest in those areas, and we already had a development team, but that development team, I guess, was more around purely websites, and so we hired some more people and skilled up our existing team into areas that were more emerging tech. So all things augmented reality, 3D spaces, virtual reality, and app development.
Awesome. Right. So you saw a problem or a lack in the industry or like a missing puzzle, and then you just went ahead and sort of built a solution to sort of.
Yeah, I think that, right? That sort of traditional agency model, we're realizing, and it's a continually evolving process. We're realizing that people as consumers and users were shifting over into those channels that they didn't necessarily have any expertise and experience in themselves, knowing that they needed to ideally move their clients into there as well, but not, these were difficult things to learn. And and I think we just sort of identified that there was that mismatch.
And that's awesome, right? Like, how tech works, and a lot of people are still not yet brought up to that tech space, and sort of like offering them solutions to like transfer their business and the way of doing things to start integrating more of tech, right? Which is, that's a lot of people are still sort of behind on tech, right? And so that's why it's good to sort of know this tech stuff and then help all the companies sort of bring it to the new age, which is awesome.
And so it is a constant thing, and I'd say to anyone who because it just changes so quickly. Like for us, we quite often say to our clients, like 2 years is a lifetime. So if somebody's, developed a custom platform 2 years ago, then it's much, if they haven't sort of been updating it. And same with the technology that's offered as well. If you look at what could be done 2 years ago in augmented reality, can now, to do the same thing, most cases can be done very easily now. But what can be done now is that's difficult.
It's already now, it's not the future. And then tech is already so fast. Yeah, you're right. Like, and then the mobile device is getting stronger every day. And then I'm playing League of Legends now on my phone. Previously, on my work computer. Now it's on my phone now, and so tech's pretty fast as well.
Yeah, and I think it's something as a business, but as individuals in tech as well, it's not easy, but you've got to make sure there's a commitment there to be constantly staying up to date with what's developing. So because I'm not really on the tools myself, I don't sort of code or anything. I know enough to be dangerous about a number of things, but a big part of, I guess, my commitment is just trying to stay up to speed with what's possible, what's coming next. I would, in a typical week, subscribe and read probably 30 newsletters in the tech space, and yeah, I think that's true for everyone who wants a tech career. It's graduating is just the first step.
Yeah, and like you're in VR and AR, like VR was hot, and then suddenly AR is hot, and then suddenly NFT is hot. But if you start NFT today, next year some other thing is hot, and NFT is like old next year. So it's so quick. But in terms of the tech, right? Like obviously we just came from 2 years-ish of COVID, right? And a lot of people have been affected. But how was your experience of COVID working in tech? Because like we all imagine that tech is possible just to work remotely because it's all tech, right? So how was your experience throughout those last 2 years?
Look, I think like most businesses around the world, there was a lot of, probably for the first month to 3 months, there was a lot of people that just didn't know what to do, and human nature was most people sort of didn't do anything in terms of brands and activity. There was that real wait and see, and then there became a thing of, well, it's the foreseeable future, we need to live with it. And then I think some brands that were forward thinking realized, obviously putting the human cost and everything into one into sort of a separate basket for the sake of the discussion around tech, it was a great opportunity. And to me, I think it probably brought things forward that in a lot of areas would have taken maybe 10 years. The notion that workplaces now are saying, we don't care if we don't see you. We'll come in 7 times a year or something and we're okay. And it's not just that physical thing. I think people shifted from a view of, okay, a person's doing their job if they're warming the seat, to what does that role actually do? What does a star in that role look like? So I think that was good, and that was good for tech because I think most people in the tech industry they know how they work best. They know what hours they want. They know and often particularly developers prefer to sort of be in the zone and not be disrupted by account managers all the time going on. Clients ask this question. So most of our development team, so we've got 3 offices, and we'll try and get the team together once every couple of months. And pretty much everyone has really embraced that and loves it. So most of our offices are empty most of the time.
Yeah. And you're right. Like everyone got forced to figure out how to work remotely. Like AIT, we got forced to sort of how to teach remotely, right? And then I know a few students that graduated during COVID and now landed a job at some game company, but they've never been to the company yet. They've all just been working from home, even though they're newly entered into the company, but they've never seen anyone. And then all of that is like the land of remote working is, now we know, and now we've adopted to it, and now we love it.
and it's, if you're sort of talking tech, it's obviously a wide spectrum of people that, small proportion of population still don't have a mobile phone, right through to early adopters. But if you look at what it's done to the average or typical person, even in things like checking into venues using a QR code, a lot of people didn't realize that they had a QR reader built into their phone.
Yeah.
What that's done, to augmented reality activations, though, to be able to say to people, use your QR code. You don't need to explain that now. So we just launched an activation for Norwest Business Park, where people walk around the lake and go to a series of plinths that they launch, and then there's it's a native animal activation, so people then bring native animals to life. Prior to COVID, we would have had to put instructions on the plinths, and this is a QR code, and take out your phone and do this and do that. And we don't need to do that anymore. Just here's the plinth, here's the QR code. So it's only
I've seen that plinth. I've been to some walks. I've seen those plinths lying around.
Yeah, well, that was us. So I mean, that in the scheme of things, that's only a small thing, but the cumulative effect of people being comfortable on Zoom calls, I mean, like them or loathe them, that's the default now, and it's almost odd to have an in-person meeting. So everyone knows how to use Zoom. And so I think, again, putting, aside the human costs for a second, I think in terms of just a purely technology play, COVID's been a massive positive.
Yeah, it's kicked us into the future sooner than before, right? And 2 years ago, if you told, I'm in tech, but if you told me to scan QR codes, I'm like, it's annoying. I don't know what's happening. Now it's like, all right, every feature needs a QR code is built in mind now. Everything we're doing, QR code is core integration of everything, because everyone knows how to use it now, right? And so it's 2 years, and we're now QR code masters. So we got a lot of people here that's interested in studying in tech, right? So we got a lot of students here that are about to finish high school or already finished high school and now decided to work in IT, tech, apps, games, everything tech, right? And so in terms of job opportunities, right? Because one of the biggest concerns, especially for parents as well and everyone else, is after studying, what are the job opportunities out there? How do you see the job opportunities in Australia, especially, right, in terms of the world of tech?
I've never seen it stronger in terms of job opportunities. So both for graduates, for experienced people, driven by a lot of forces that are basically just making the job market ridiculously strong. So there's the pause in migration, in skilled migration, which has affected the ability to hire people under those visa classes, but also Australia doesn't, or for those 2 years didn't have the graduating international students that would often stay and get a residency visa. So that's essentially taken a big chunk out of the available developers in the Australian market, coupled with, so there's less supply, but dramatically increased demand for all the reasons that we've been talking about, of brands and companies just needing more tech-based solutions. So we're recruiting for a number of roles at the moment. There's absolutely no shortage of job opportunities.
Yeah, and I don't know if everyone's heard of this phrase called the Great Resignation that happened apparently, and what people are doing is they're resigning from things that they can't work remotely to jobs where they can work remotely as well. And so that's been happening behind the scenes. So but that's good to hear that, that sector of jobs is growing in terms of IT and tech stuff. Other questions. So in terms of job opportunities, I know, in your presentation, you mentioned a couple of our AIT students that came from internships working on some of the projects, right? So for those who don't know, AIT also have an internship program where we send students to, sort of work with industry on projects, right? And so you've had some of our students. How are your experience working with the AIT internship program and the AIT students, and how are they doing now?
Yeah, look, great. I think we're up to 6, in terms of people that we've hired straight out of the program.
Wow.
We love it, actually, in that it's a great way because it is so hard to recruit, but particularly for what we do in emerging tech, like there literally isn't people that have been around for 20 years in augmented reality, because it hasn't really existed as a technology. So it suits our business model really to get, and look, we hire experienced people as well, but we're certainly open to hiring graduates. And the internship program we find is good for a number of reasons. It's keeps us fresh in terms of what's being taught. It gives us the ability to obviously have a look at potential people to hire over the period of a number of weeks, but equally important, it gives potential team members an opportunity to look at us and see if they like the kind of work that we do, and they like, because every workplace, every team is different, has a different dynamic. So, equally important, we need to be a good fit for people if they're going to come and work for us as well.
And just one last question, and then I'll go to the questions in the chat. So in terms of the people that you've taken on, apart from their tech skills, what other soft skills have you realized has been, one of the most important things as part of being in the team? Like soft skills like, teamwork, communication, problem solving, or just like independence during remote times. Like what have you have found valuable apart from just tech skills?
Yeah, I think probably a really big one is, and we've sort of touched on it already, is staying up to speed with what's happening, being, the ability to learn how to learn, which I often say is really one of the most important things you learn, as a graduate with AIT, is you've learned how to learn, because as much as I think what you're teaching is the latest, is up to speed, in many respects it'll be redundant or outdated in 2 to 5 years time. What students are learning is really the ability to learn. So it's that structure, where to look, to be discerning, to find answers to problems, because it is constantly changing. It's one of those things that's true for, I think, most industries, but tech in particular, where there's so much information out there, being discerning enough to go, okay, well, this is from a trusted source, this seems credible, let's give this a try. Being part of a team, and it's often, just a throwaway line, it's almost cliched of, it's so important to be able to work as a team, but it really, really is. And I think it's probably even more so with remote working. So we have daily WIP meetings, Zoom meetings, and then smaller sort of one-on-one project meetings. So knowing, I guess, what you need to do in your role in a particular team, because the devs, animators, modelers, they're often working across 3 or 4 different projects. So you're, very much involved in different teams, and being able to multitask and manage priorities is really important. Yeah, I think that's probably, and I guess having accountability around, often development is all about problem solving. So there's a bug, something's not working, we're trying to do something that we haven't done before for a client. Where do you go to source the information and actually come up with a solution that works, and do it in a timely manner? I think we have commercial pressures, and yeah, I think they're probably the main skills. And honestly, we have a range of, I guess, personality types and types of people that are successful with us. There's no, we have sometimes very outgoing, gregarious developers, which I think people sort of think is a misnomer, but it's not. It's and then we have the more, I guess, people that like to work solo, but they can be successful as well. So I don't think it's really determined on a particular personality type or anything. It's just the ability to learn and to fit in well with the team.
And there's so many different types of people as well. Like once upon a time, there was a student project that worked on star signs. And then me as the teacher, I was forced to learn star signs. And then I realized there's 12 types of people, right? 12 star signs. And they all, you got the ones that talk a lot and then like express their emotions like, wow, I'm feeling angry right now. And then there's a quiet that are like, they're angry, but they won't tell you they're angry. And then, and there's all that 12 variations of people out there, right? Which is very interesting to see. But no, that's really good point, right? In terms of like working remote, especially now, remotely working and trust that you'll get your work done. So part of it is all like sort of like studying, but it's just different, right? You work on different assignments anyway, and hopefully you meet your, complete your projects within the assignment deadlines, right? And as well, one of the cool things I think anyway, in terms of IT, right? Like you mentioned problem solving, because when you're studying tech and IT, you're actually learning how to solve problems half the time, right? And so you're not really coding is one thing, but most of the time your code's busted. And that's most of the time. And then most of the time you spent problem solving and researching how to solve problems. And 3 years later, you become an excellent problem solver that you can solve any problem, right? If you need to learn NFT today, it's like, how the hell do we learn NFT? You know how to figure it out, because through the 3 years of doing problem solving, it's now like built into your muscle. So that's how I see like tech is just problem solving half the time, right? So
yeah, and I'd add to that as well. It's something that we've got platforms that have been going on for clients for, I don't know, 7 or 8 years that are quite robust, large platforms that even if they were perfect the moment that they went live, it's not enough to say that, because new hardware comes out. There's updates to code libraries that need to be enacted. So even if a product is entirely bug-free at a point in time based on all of the available technology, it stays that way, because there's a new iPhone, there's a new Android, there's new everything. And it's that dialogue between the software and the hardware that I think means developers and anyone in tech really to realize it's a constant evolution, it's a constant process.
And it reminds me of this one time I released an app when iPhone X released. 1-star review because it doesn't work on iPhone X when someone bought it on iPhone X, and then the screen was too long and it didn't fit on the iPhone X. It's like, should have. And then we had to patch it up afterwards, but it was too late. So we actually had a job with the Xbox, an app. That was to launch a week in then the Cambridge Analytica scandal. Oh no.
Changed all their rules, and so the app didn't work.
Oh no, yeah. Every time there's an update, all the developers are like, oh no, updates. But now thanks for sharing with us all that insight, right? And so let's go to the questions in the chat. And Charlotte, would you be available to come on?
Yeah. Hey, thanks so much for that, Michael. That was really interesting. So just to extend upon the soft skills discussion that we had, that Tara in the chat had an interesting question about what kind of technical and software knowledge do you seek in graduates to be able to work in this area?
Yeah, so we have our preferred platforms. So we tend to do most of our 3D environments in Unity. The guys will model in Maya. We use Firebase. We'll tend to use AWS in backend. Those things are good as a starting point, but if somebody's stronger in Unreal Engine, we do Unreal projects. If somebody's learned Unreal rather than Unity, then they're pretty well skilled to learn Unity very quickly. So we tend not to really be that strict in applying, a person needs to know exactly these platforms, because they can learn them very quickly if they've sort of learned, a sister platform or something. But yeah, they're the main, I guess, the main ones that we'll use. But again, it changes so quickly. It's not a hard and fast rule that somebody, like if we're going to employ someone as a back end developer, then they'll need to know at least 2 or 3 of the major sort of database platforms or something, but we're not strict in terms of it's got to be exactly particular platforms.
So you have to be constantly updating your knowledge base, and I'm sure you'd be doing a lot of on-the-job training as well. So whatever software comes up, you're like sort of training them as you go along. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. And people within our team will tend to be, even if they didn't start that way, they'll tend to become sort of our specialists in 2 or 3 different things. And we tend to sort of have at least 2 or 3 people that specialize in particular things, so that, you know, if we've got a number of projects that need a particular type of back-end developer or something, we know we've got some resources we can call on there.
Yeah, you mentioned Unity and Unreal. What's your preference? I guess, what do you use more?
Yeah, so most of what we're doing now is in Unity, but again, you know, if it tends to be sort of a more fast-moving, graphics intense thing, then we'll look at Unreal. But if it's something like, you know, the gallery activations that I showed, they're built in Unity.
Wow. And related to that, Philip had a question about what software you guys use to make the augmented reality spaces.
Yep. Yeah, so that's again a mix based on what the requirements are. So I touched on it before, where that's an area that's just, you know, dramatically improving. So the iOS and Android platforms in ARCore and ARKit, so what's effectively built into a person's phone without needing an app, they've just exponentially improved over the last couple of years. So a big chunk of what we're doing is actually just web-based using ARCore and ARKit. So the Norwest activation that I mentioned, that's just QR activated. QR code really just takes people to a URL. The URL launches via their phone, and it's just using the tech that's in the phone. If it's more complicated than that, then we'll use a platform like an Eighth Wall or something. I don't know if anyone's sort of familiar with the AR space, but it's just that mix of, yeah, we'll use whatever's in someone's phone to keep it simple, if that gets the job done in a way that delivers a good project. Otherwise, we need to sort of get a bit more complicated.
Yeah, wow. Okay.
But yeah,
thanks.
if somebody's interested in AR, I'd say just start with ARCore and ARKit as the main, as sort of the foundations.
Okay, great. Thanks. We had another question about what some other qualities that you seek from graduates, apart from the software, the technical know-how. You mentioned the soft skills and being adaptable and so forth. Were there any other qualities that you kind of really search for, that you seek for?
Look, I think finding what you're passionate about. So we'll quite regularly, you know, when I'm sort of talking to the team, say, and it's balancing, I guess, the commercial realities of, if we've got projects on, and then obviously we need to service the projects, but where possible, we try and match what we're out in the market pushing and pitching for with what our team want to work on. So finding what, I guess, you're passionate about, because if you're passionate about, and there's so many little niches and things, find what really motivates you, and because you're going to learn that quicker, you're going to enjoy that more. And it doesn't need to be one thing, but yeah, I guess, I don't know if it's necessarily skill, but it wouldn't be, it's hard to be an all-rounder. It's hard to sort of say, yes, I do all things as a person. So finding 2 or 3 or one niche thing that you're really interested in, and becoming a real specialist in that.
Okay, great. Okay, great. Tara had another question, actually. So if you could give us an example of your typical team composition. So, for example, the makeup of a typical team working on an interactive project, like the various roles they play, responsibilities, job titles, that kind of thing.
Yep, yeah, great. Great question. It varies a lot because we do such a wide offering. So something that, you know, we would have done for, say, Polestar is very different to, so our virtual background is obviously a screenshot from the Natsia gallery. So using Natsia Gallery as an example, as a 3D thing, that would have an account manager, a project manager, who'd be client facing. So that would be the person who's liaises with the client. There's always at least one of those. Sometimes if there's a lot of detail around, as there was with Natsia, there might be two to manage all the information back and forth. There's always a lead. So there's a lead developer, there's a lead 3D. So something like Natsia would be, there's all the modeling work to be done. So the 3D modeling, and there'd be a team typically of, I think there was 3 on Natsia, and they build, so that project, they build the environment, they manage the artworks. The 3D artworks are actually captured using photogrammetry. So we just used a series of cameras that did thousands or tens of thousands of photos of the sculptures, and then effectively reproduced them as 3D models. So a team doing that, and then the game devs. So 2 people working on the actual navigation around the Unity environment. So a project of that size might be, say, a project team of 8 to 10 people.
Wow. And for a project like that, how long would that take? I mean, what's your longest project?
Driven by client in terms of, they'll come to us and say, we should have talked to you 2 months ago, but we've only got 6 weeks, that sort of thing. So 8 to 12 weeks is sort of comfortable for most projects, but we've turned things around in sort of 3 or 4 weeks if we have to.
Yeah, great. Awesome. I had a question from Andrew, actually. How much does it cost to run the company? If you mind sharing that, or just a ballpark figure, roughly.
Yeah, it's driven really by headcount. So a company like ours, certainly on the digital side, doesn't really have a lot of, you've got offices, you've got licenses for things, you've got all that. But we're essentially a services company. So you can work out what it costs any company to operate in our industry in a digital sense by counting the number of people, their role, and what a typical salary would be. In the millions, not hundreds of millions. I don't know how best to answer that. But look, it really does change. And I think a company that, it's a good question because, the specific answer probably doesn't matter that much. It's just for a company that is growing rapidly, it's very important to keep track of that. Because, and you can fall into the trap of feeling really busy, but you do need to sort of apply, as much as we're in a creative and a tech industry, you do need to apply, I guess, some business oversight to say, okay, what does it cost every month to keep the doors open? What are we doing? Most of our projects will have a lead time of a couple of months, or sometimes, longer or shorter. What are we doing? We're sort of a dozen businesses in one. Is a business like ours, because you've got salespeople who sort of have to feed the machine. You've got people who obviously have to produce the work. We've got internal accountants. So yeah, without, I guess, giving a specific answer, it's really just driven by headcount at the time. And
you mentioned COVID. Yes, sorry.
If you're growing rapidly, what it costs at the start of a financial year is very different to what it costs at the end.
And you mentioned COVID, that you only meet your team about maybe once every 2 months. So you've got an empty office, and would that sort of play a role that, okay, well, we don't actually need an office now. It's virtual. Yeah,
it's like we get, we see each other sort of every day virtually, but it's in terms of getting everyone together, and that's like split across obviously Sydney and Melbourne. That's what we aim for, once a month, but it's particularly if there's sort of outbreaks or whatever, we don't think it's prudent to bring everyone together if it's not absolutely necessary. But yeah, the company like ours doesn't necessarily need an office. So
Yeah, Tamara just commented that it's quite extraordinary where the tech industry is going, and you've adapted really well. I guess another question would be, what should IT students be thinking about and focusing on in their thinking when taking this into account with industry?
Yeah, look, I think going back to just find what you're passionate about, and you don't need to know that precisely, because that changes over the course of a working life or life generally. But if you're interested in VR, then gravitate toward VR. If it's NFTs, then learn everything you can about that. I think, just follow your interests really, and don't kind of go, oh, well, you get 20 grand a year more to be a back-end developer, therefore I'll force myself into that. There is no shortages of jobs in tech. And you might as well be focused on an area that you enjoy.
Okay, beautiful. If there are no other questions in the chat, I can bring Carlton back on. Thank you so much, Michael. That was really, really great. There was one tiny question if we've got time. Sorry, Carlton. Tamara asked, there are many growth areas. What's your advice there?
In terms of what students focus on?
Let me just see what Tamara can elaborate on that question a bit in terms of growth area. I'm just waiting on the chat. She can elaborate a bit more in terms of the industry, you mean, or jobs?
If it's like tech generally, it's really growing everywhere.
Where students should focus on? Yeah,
and I think following what the major players are investing in, if you're interested in that area. So if you go, like virtual reality's had many sort of starts, and people say false starts and everything. The numbers are, it's actually been growing pretty consistently, and tends to, say with the latest Quest 2 headset, more was sold Christmas, I think 2 years ago, than were sold in the preceding 5 years. So VR, if that's an area of interest, is a pretty safe bet, because Facebook, Google, Apple, they're all investing huge sums of money and human resources, like developers and people, into those platforms. So I don't think you can sort of make a wrong decision. I think if VR's your thing, AR's your thing, crypto, they're all just going to grow exponentially.
All right, great. Thank you so much. Beautiful. All right, thanks, Carlton.
Tamara still has questions.
Oh yeah.
But that's a good point, Michael, in terms of VR, right? And so I guess the advice here is, if you haven't played a VR game or don't have VR headset yet, go buy one and play some games, right? Because if you haven't played any sort of VR games yet, you'll be blown away by what VR is capable these days in terms of gaming. Like back in the days, VR was like, the graphics are still not there yet, but now it's like there, and it's like, wow, you'll get blown away by some of the games done in VR. And after you play VR games, now start making VR simulations. Obviously, Facebook investing in Meta and VR and all that sort of thing. So VR, I think, Michael, you're right, it's going to be the next thing. So get familiar with VR. Tamara's last question would be programming or 3D. What's I guess team comp? I guess back to team comp. Is there more artists or are there more programmers, depending on the project? But what do you see?
Typically, we'd have more programmers, but it's sort of hard to draw a line. Like if you go a project like Natsia, staying with that example, it's got definitely programmers in sense of, there's a back end because people vote on artworks, and there's a live element on the night and everything. So, but then you've got modelers, animators, Unity developers. So is a Unity developer a programmer, or are they a lot of times what they're doing is more creative stuff as well. I'm not saying obviously developers not creative, but it's what people would typically sort of call creative. Same with the modelers. So yeah, it's I guess very much I think that the line is not as clear as it was, and certainly isn't as clear if you're in that 3D virtual environment space. So again, just follow your passion, and doesn't need to be, you know, like a calling or anything. It's often just what are you interested in, what are you reading, what are you watching, what are you doing. Just follow that. But yeah, I don't think in anything we're talking about, I don't think you can make a wrong decision.
And yeah, when you say creative, I think everyone has a creative in them. And so by default, you're somewhat creative, and now you just add on the tech side, and now you're tech and somewhat creative, and then you can get the best of both worlds as well at times. So, anyways, that was a lot of great questions. So thank you everyone for asking those questions. And of course, thank you so much, Michael, for, you know, taking the time out of tonight to share with us, you know, what you do and give us some of the insight to what's been happening in the world of tech. That was really insightful. And yeah, we all learned a lot from it. So thanks so much for your time. And so before we're going to farewell Michael off in a sec, but we still have another 15 session to, if anyone want to hang back to learn more about the IT degree. We're going to cover a bit about what the hell do you learn in an IT degree and all the things that we go through from a tech degree. So hang around if you're interested. But otherwise, I just want to say farewell to Michael once again. So thanks again for your time. And if everyone can sort of, you know, help say thanks to Michael as well for his time, that would be awesome, because we really appreciate you taking your time to, you know, prepare this little talk for us. So
yeah, well, thanks for the invitation. And yeah, if anyone wants to connect with me, then just shoot me a connection on LinkedIn. That's sort of my main thing. So happy to connect with anyone.
That's awesome. So everyone should go LinkedIn and search for Michael Dries. We type it in the chat, Michael Dries, and then yeah, add him on LinkedIn if you have more questions regarding interests in tech. Thank you so much, Michael. I'll catch you next time. It was good seeing you.
See you later. Bye.
Thanks.
Awesome. Oh, cool. Anyways, now we're gonna quickly go over. I'm going to introduce you to Donna, one of our course advisors. Hello, Donna. And she's going to share with us, you know, our IT degree and all the things that you learn in a 3-year IT degree. So I'll hand it over to Donna, where she'll share some more cool stuff with you.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining our session today. So what we're going to do is have a bit of a talk in regards to the courses that we have on offer at AIT across IT. We will have a bit of a Q&A at the end, so make sure you change, like with your chat, once again, all panelists and attendees or everyone, just to make sure that we can see all your questions, which Charlotte will collate and we'll talk about a little bit further into the presentation. So let's get started. Okay, so courses for the creative industry. So for over 20 years, AIT has delivered progressive education for the creative, digital media and tech industries that places graduates at the very top of their game. We pride ourselves on getting to know our students' passions, sources of inspiration and their unique artistic style, whilst we also provide regular opportunities to connect them to industry. We do this because we believe in cultivating the creativity and potential of every individual. AIT is actually a part of the iCollege Group, which is like a publicly listed private education provider, and we actually offer campuses in both Sydney and Melbourne. As you can see here, we cover everything from film and video, games programming, 2D animation, 3D design, game design, and also mobile app development. We are actually Australia's first Bachelor of IT specialising specifically in mobile app development, which is really exciting. So to tell you a little bit about the mobile app development course, we offer the most intensive and focused, and basically it's going to be very different to the really more business focused IT qualifications out there with the mobile app development. But I have to say it's much more than just mobile app development. We put that real accent on that specialty. So become a language agnostic programmer. So So JavaScript and Python, they're usually the most used languages by the world's programmers. You'll learn the world's top 5 app programming languages, which means you graduate as a language agnostic programmer, which will make you more adaptable and more employable when you enter the industry. So having a look here, you'll really sort of touch on integrated development environment, or IDE, Microsoft Visual Studio, VS Code, Android Studio, and Xcode, where you actually write your own code. Platforms, so Microsoft Windows and Mac OS. Project development tools such as Jira, Trello, Basecamp, Asana, and additional programming languages such as JavaScript, Node.js, React Native, PHP, and Python. Okay, so here we have a bit of a snapshot of our IT courses. So as you can see here, the diploma of IT is actually the first year of the bachelor. And generally with the diploma of IT, you're going to go in and cover 8 subjects. We have an associate degree as well, which is basically going into the 2nd year of the bachelor. And the bachelor, you have the option of doing a 3-year bachelor, which is a standard model, or you could even fast track and go with a 2-year accelerated bachelor. As you'll notice here, we have featured our domestic and international pricing. And as I mentioned before, we've got campus in Sydney and also in Melbourne. And what's really great about this course is if you're an Australian citizen, you will be eligible for a fully approved government help loan program that is known as FEED Help, which we can help you with if you have any questions. Awesome. So now I would love to invite Carlton.
Can you see me? Thank you, Dana. So yeah, I'll just continue on for where Dana left off is have a looking at the course. So obviously, if you ever check out our course guide, you'll see this picture here, which is all the subjects that you'll learn throughout the 3 years of studying IT, right? And so Dana already covered all the languages in programming, right? C#, C++, JavaScript, Python, a lot of things, right? And so what does that all mean? Because you're about to make a lot of things. You're about to make websites, right? Websites need a different language. You're about to make applications. Applications need a different language. You're about to make maybe some games. We got 2 IT degrees. We got a mobile app and we got a games programming, right? And so sometimes you make them games and that's another language. And basically everyone wants their own language to make their own things, right? Android needs Android language. iPhone needs iPhone language. PC needs PC language. And so basically just learn all the languages and then you'll be able to sort of like make all kinds of different apps from different platforms and devices, right? So that's essentially what this is, right? This is intro to web. So starting on the left, intro to web, make some websites. You got programming, right? C++, which allows you to make, you know, applications and PC stuff. And then you got JavaScript, which also helps. We got network, so you can do like, you know, talking to servers and stuff because it's all about networking and online stuff these days. We got enterprise systems, right? And those are like systems more for like corporate, right? And so what are you making apps for? You're making apps for consumers or corporate companies. And so there's a lot of different types of things that you know, as a programmer, be able to make, right? And so then you got back end stuff, like, you know, when you log into anything like eBay, for example, or your personal data, your search history, your purchase history, your favorite wish lists, everything that's in your backend, your saved data, basically your saved profile, right? And all that sort of thing. So there's a front end. Front end is, you know, think of the game, and back end is when you log in all the stuff that your saved data. That's the back end sort of thing, right? And then, so yeah, lots of things happen in the mobile apps, iOS apps, cross-platform apps, so Android apps. So you'll be like making a lot of stuff and learning a lot of languages along the way. Yeah, we'll move to the next.
Awesome. Thanks, Carlton. Okay, so now we are going to move on to the other sector of our Bachelor of IT, which is the Bachelor of IT, but majoring in games programming. So what you will learn, so to program awesome games using in-demand gaming engine, Unreal Engine. And something to note with Unreal Engine, I'm sure you've heard this with the convo previously, and Carlton can definitely sort of discuss this further at the end. A lot of employers are actually going to ask for experience in Unreal Engine. So this is a very important program to cover. You'll use Photoshop, Blender, and other software to create content for games, and to create your own very game engine and then your own game on top. So really, we're going to go in and teach you how to build your own game engine, which is pretty major considering, you know, we just don't teach software, we teach you how to build the software from scratch. And really, this holds a huge, great appeal to employers because it's actually going to further your skill level for the future for employment. So elevate your earning potential and employability. So as you can see here, average graduate salaries with Unreal Engine, 70 to 90K, custom engine, 90 to 110K. Because you can sort of program in that Unreal and a custom engine, you're going, as I mentioned previously, you're going to be more employable, more adaptable, and attract a higher earning potential when you graduate. A good example of this would be Sledgehammer Games, who developed Call of Duty. It's actually all built around a custom engine. So they look to hire people who can build engines from scratch, and they're willing to pay for people that can do this. And we teach this, which is really important to know. And now I'd like to invite Carlton.
Oh, this is the game. So yeah, so back to this thing here. Most of it is the same. So as mentioned before, you can specialize in mobile apps or you can specialize in games, right? And so the difference you'll see here is that then there's more, just spot the word game, I guess. And so game engine programming, right? We'll learn how to make a game engine from scratch because sometimes, you know, a lot of the higher end companies, rather than using Unity and Unreal, which are the two popular ones right now, but to get a competitive advantage, they make their own secret game engine so that they can beat the competition. So anyways, that's game engine programming. But otherwise, you'll learn Unreal Engine. So in game development and game advanced is an advanced game development too, and advanced game projects. So you'll be making like, starting from very simple games, such as like a shoot 'em up, right? A shoot 'em up game where you fly around a plane and shoot things and blow things and get a score and get power-ups and all that. You'll learn how to make first-person shooters, right? Where you run around with a gun and shoot people and kill stuff. You learn hack and slash games, all the cool stuff. Hack and slash, what's that? Just running around with a sword. It's like a top-down RPG where you run around and kill monsters and then get skill points and level up and shoot fireballs and stuff. So you get to learn all that. And then eventually you get a game project. You also get augmented reality as well. So something that Michael touched on is augmented reality, which is on a phone, and then you can like see your 3D content and make augmented reality games. And then last but not least, you've got your advanced studio. So you'll see studio in both mobile and games. That's your major project, right? And so you're over 2 semesters, you'll work on your major project. So what do you want to make? And you get 2 semesters to create your ultimate project. That's going to be your key portfolio piece. So that is the studio, what that means.
Awesome, thank you. We'll see you soon. All right, cool. So intakes. So we actually offer quite a few intakes. So it's not sort of a necessity to start right at the very beginning of the year. You have the option of our next one being May, September and February, and it's like this every single year. So you've definitely got a lot of flexibility there in regards to when you get started. Apply now. So ait.edu.au/apply now for domestic students. And if you're interested and you're an international student, definitely reach out to Thais by international@ait.edu.au and we can assist you further. And here is our team of course advisors. So my name is Donna. I am actually a domestic enrolment advisor based in Melbourne. My colleague in the middle here, Anthony, is based in Sydney alongside Charlotte, who look after the domestic market. And we also have Thais on the team who looks after international as well. Awesome. Thank you so much for all joining us today. Charlotte, how did you go?
Okay, hi Donna, hi everyone. Well, a little bit quiet on the chat, but I have a couple of questions actually for Carlton, if he's
coming
can
back
get
on.
him back on.
Hmm.
Hey Carlton. I'm just wondering, with the course, is there like presumed knowledge you need to enroll into the course? Like, do you need to have know how to do any programs, sort of be beneficial? Like, can you tell me more about that?
Yeah, so the whole point of the course is to teach someone from scratch, not knowing anything, right? So you can literally come in and say, I don't know anything about programming. That's okay, right? Because we teach you from the introduction and then train you up. Like 3 years later, you'll learn a lot, right? And so in the beginning, you don't need any sort of, know any programming. There's no requirements. And even for those who do know a little bit of programming already, that sort of helps. But if not, then that's okay. We teach everything from scratch.
Okay, that's fine. And how many kind of little projects do you do throughout the course? We know that you do the advanced studio, but do you work on little projects throughout?
Yeah, and so every subject, you'll see that how many subjects, there's like 24 subjects. So that means there's a lot of different little projects from all kinds of things, like starting off with intro to web, you get make a website, and then foundation programming, you get to make these little small applications with windows and little interfaces. And then eventually you move on to more advanced websites and applications for PC, and then applications for mobile, right? Mobile, and then I think there was a UI UX as well there, where you learn how to design like nicer interfaces, right, for mobile and web. So it's mostly mobile, web, apps, and then games. You also make a lot of games as well. There's like four or five subjects in games. So that means every game subject, you're making a game. So there's like 5 games in there. So, and there's individual games, and then there's group games as well. Like the final advanced studio is like a group project where you make a bigger game as a group.
Nice one, cool. And like, how many programs? You mentioned there were quite a few programs that you learn within the course. How many do you learn altogether?
No. Well, if we still have Donna's list, that was that big ass list, but that's and so yeah,
a huge list, yeah.
But otherwise, it's C++ because that's important, right? C++ is important for Windows applications. So if you're making applications for Windows and stuff, C++ and C# is important. Then Xcode and for iOS, Apple stuff. So that you got to learn that, and you use this software called Xcode. Then you use Android Studio, which is for Android, right? So because everyone wants their own tech and do stuff. Then you learn Unreal Engine, right, to make games. And you'll be doing that for multiple semesters to get that. And then you learn other sort of like UI software, like the Adobe Suite to do stuff, to make designs. So there's tons, but 3 years later, you'll become a pro at all these tools. And then essentially the aim is 3 years later, you can make a lot of things, right? And you can make, essentially, if the client tells you to make something, like you have the capability to make it, because once you sort of know how tech works and stuff, it's like, all right, we need an app for, I don't know, Woolworths or something. Woolworths wants this, wants that. And once you sort of get how tech works, it's all just time working on it. But in terms of the know-how, I think you'll be very solid in terms of how it's all made.
And what kind of companies have people sort of gone into? Have you been in touch with your graduates, with ex-students?
So from my end, I'm more in touch with the game students, right? And so just a few semesters, couple of semesters back, there's more students that went into, there's lots of game companies that we can go on in Sydney, but 3 of them made it into SMG. They're like five. If anyone comes to, Sydney AIT, 5 minutes across the road, there's a game studio called SMG Studios, and we had like 3 students go over there. But obviously Michael has taken on 6 of our graduates as well. They used to be internship students, and now they're working for Michael full-time as well. And then there's all these other, like tomorrow, whoever's coming on, there's another talk tomorrow, by the way, from Chaos Theory. So we have students that now working at Chaos Theory as well, but they're going to do a talk tomorrow as well, what they're doing. So yeah, there's a lot of students that's sort of headed on to many, for my anyway, I keep connect with the game students. So
great. Aidan had a question. Does the course include game programming in JavaScript or languages other than the game engines?
other than the game engines, you'll learn the basic game engine programming and stuff. And it's not JavaScript, it's more C++ and learn how to build games. But those are like very primitive games because you need the like if you're building just programming without the whole engine itself, then you got to build the 3D, like code it to show 3D models, code it to collide with things, code it to like, you're basically rebuilding the whole thing. And it's quicker to, there's what I call cook the food or make the oven, right? If you want to cook food, you don't want to be busy making the oven, if that makes sense. Like you just want to buy the oven or have the oven ready so you can just sort of start cooking food, right? And games are the food. But if we're just going to make games purely from like a raw language, that's like creating the oven, and that takes like forever. And so, but yeah, most of our time will be specializing in the engine because the industry wants Unreal Engine programmers. This is now we teach Unreal Engine program.
Awesome.
Nice. And Donna, with the course, or maybe Carlton, what proportion of it is theory based, and how much of it is hands-on practical?
Yeah, I think from the IT side, because I know interactive media, there's like a strand of theory, but most of the IT is mostly practical because you're coding stuff. Yeah, and so you'll be coding a lot. And yeah, it would be mostly more hands-on practical with, you know, an occasional theory once in a while.
All right. Thanks so much, Carlton. And anyone else, if you have any other questions, you can reach out to me. I'll pop my email in the chat there. And thanks so much.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
So if there's no other questions, I guess thank you everyone once again. Thank you. There's a few people here. So Aiden, Charlie, Cindy, Cott, Mel, Melina, Nisha, thanks for staying back and yeah, tuning in. Hope everyone had a good time and learned a lot of things. And of course, thanks Donna and Charlotte for also, you know, tracking everyone's questions, making sure they were answered. So anyways, I think it's dinner time. So everyone have a good night, and yeah, hope to catch you maybe in tomorrow's talk. Sign up to tomorrow's talk as well, maybe, because lots more game stuff happening tomorrow as well.
Great, thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.